And hello again. We have another deck tech for the upcoming one Phyrexia. All will be one set and standard. And this is quite an update from a previous deck tech that I made for Brothers War. And this time, I'm glad that I will be able to share this deck list again with the inclusion of the reprint of this card, which we call as the Phyrexian Arena. So this one, as was very popular back in the day of this deck build, and I think that was the Apocalypse Odyssey standard days. And with several of these reprints, I think we can still come up with a similar deck list that contains the same strategy. So we go with this build as the Mono Black Control or the MBC deck, and adapting the same setup, and we'll also using some of the good cards of the black color, and also with the classic, which is also reprinted, the classic Corrupt. And basically winning from this card is one way of our main deck strategy. So this deck list has come up with some reference from a few posted in MTG Top 8. And this is composed of 15 creatures, 4 enchantments, again, Arena, 6 instants, 25 lands, the single Lone Planeswalker plays Liana of the Veil, and some sorcery of 9. So we're not only not going with just wiping out creatures and playing our own and winning from there, but also to make sure that we are consistent with our card draws by having Phyrexian Arena in our board. So along with it, we go first with the creature choices. Again, for the 2 drops, we have Mysterious Shadow, which is very good mana sink, not only in the early turns, but especially in the late game, which you can just basically win out with this kind of strategy by having this one bigger than your opponent's creatures. And the bonus is that whenever your opponent creature will die, they will be exiled, so no other graveyard shenanigans, and those will be prevented by this passive ability. So 2 copies of that. We don't really need to have this one early on since we are going with the control route, and casting this late game would really benefit us as we have more extra mana to pump this one its power and toughness and be more efficient in these attacks. Now next, for the 3 drops, we have 3 copies of Graveyard Trespasser, so just basically another way to remove out any graveyard shenanigans, and also quite hardy to deal with because of the ward of discarding a card. So when it enters the battlefield, you may exile up to 1 target card from the graveyard, though if the creature card was exiled, each opponent loses life and you will gain 1 life. So another option also, it becomes Nightbound, it becomes a Graveyard Glutton. It is bigger, it's 4/4, and it has ability that whenever it enters the battlefield this time at this night time or attacks, you can exile up to 2 target cards. So a more efficient way to deal with graveyard shenanigans and other creatures that I have this ability of returning back to the battlefield and stopping it from any of those kind of card advantage. Now for the next 3 drop, which also can become your 7 drop, is Phyrexian Freshgorger. You have the option to have a prototype early on if there's team need to attack, for example, for matchups against control or other mid-range decks. And later on, if you will be able to tap this one and have the 7 mana to cast it, then just basically go for the 7 mana cost of 7/5 Menace Lifelink. At the same time, can be able to protect itself by the ward of paying life equal to its power. Up next, we also have 3 copies of each, the new reprint and the reprinted card, Obliterator and Shieldred Apocalypse. So Obliterator is very good here against matchups against aggro or any other decks that won't really have some good source of spot removal, because of the damage dealt to it from the source will have that source controller sacrifice that many permanents. Also, it is a 5/5 trampler, which basically can go off against champ blockers, and dealing 5 damage is basically a huge chunk of life that is dealt against opponents, which can be later on reached by the Corrupt ability spell, basically draining out their life for the win. Now for Shieldred, another damage source with a passive ability. Shenanigans of your opponents that they will draw a card, they will lose 2 life for that, and also you will also have gain life whenever you draw a card. So it goes well with the Phyrexian Arena, since this one has a drawback that you will draw a card, you will lose 1 life. But with Shieldred in play, drawing the extra cards would basically garner you 4 life, so minus the lose life of 1, they would basically get you gaining 3 life each turn. So basically a very good uh, card advantage, but also life total advantage against most of your opponents. So again, we have Phyrexian Arena as a lone card draw, and for options for our spot removals, we have 2 copies of Cut Down, 1 copy of Go for the Throat, 2 copies of Infernal Grasp, since this is more efficient, and losing 2 life will not really matter here because we have several life gain effects, and a lone copy of Sheoldred's Edict. So this is the new 1 card from Phyrexia All Will Be One set. It has its options to have your opponent sacrifice an untoken creature, sacrifice a creature token, or sacrifice a planeswalker. So this is also a good way, some of the edict effect that can basically kill out some of your relevant threats and basically bypassing those tokens that are sacrificed instead of the main target or main target creature. For the lone planeswalker, we have included the Veil, since we have other options also to have your opponents discard a card. So if you already have Arena in play, you can just basically draw more cards than them and then use Linen of the Veil to have them discard their gas or any other threats that we have in their hand. And the bonus also, if you were able to reach the -6, then just basically halving up their permanents, the controls, and then sacrificing the rest on the pile. So with Corrupt now as our also another main target, sort of a win condition, because you can basically drain up your opponent's life total, and if there have been a big threats that need to be targeted, you can also use Corrupt to deal with it, and you will also gain life equal to the damage dealt with this way. So with 25 lands and mostly 22 swamps, you are basically having more value here as you cast Corrupt by your 6th turn. So it's not really going good with this, since we only have 4 for 5, but we also have Invoke Despair as another spot removal and lose life generator, since we would sacrifice a creature and do this same process for sacrificing a planeswalker in enchantment. So if you don't be able to sacrifice, they will lose 2 life and you will draw a card. So 4 copies of Invoke Despair and a lone copy of Gixis Command. So this is another way of I think sort of a mass removal, because of its ability that can destroy its creature with power 2 or less and put any edict effect. So each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures to control, and also an option to give you to return any of your creature cards from your graveyard to your hand up to 2 copies, and also a lifelink source, wherein you will put 2+1 counters on target creature and gains lifelink until end of turn. So any of the variants of the scenarios would really be useful with that of the Gixis Command. So overall, this would be the list of your mono black control, and I think this would be the similar build now that the Phyrexia will be one set will be out in almost in basically 2 or more weeks. Now for the deck stats, basically average mana value of 3.97, and mostly between 3 and 4 mana cost are your cards, and color distribution is basically black with this. And your tokens, we don't have extra tokens in here. But for the sideboard suggestion, let me have a quick discussion on that. So sideboard will basically composed of Jures, maybe a playset of those, because of discarding effects against control would be really necessary in other mid-range decks. Creature-specific removals would also work, such as Whack, and more planeswalkers should also be added, such as Sorin the Mirthless, as another creature and threat source that basically bypass some of the spot removals and maybe some of the destroy effects that you would need to have more advantage over them just for their single target. So overall, I would think we'll have this one tested once the set is legal not to play in MTG Arena. I would have this list, but probably we'll have more with Bard's War, Flesh Warrior, and have some wild cards converted to these new cards from the set. So that's basically about this, guys. One Phyrexia All Will Be One mono black control version. And if you like this content, just click on subscribe and notifications bell for more MCG deck text for the upcoming Phyrexia set, and also other formats discussions such as in Pioneer and maybe for modern if we have some extra time to discuss those archetypes. So that's basically wrapping up this one. Thank you for watching this video, and until the next time.